music from Northampton's General Hospital. The best music, Radio Nene Valley.
It's Radio Nene Valley, Saturday the 12th of January, 4 minutes past 9. And as I said, we've cleared most of the boards, kept one or two of the features in, but we have our resident poet. Doesn't live here, lives down the road. But James McInerney, how long have you been a poet now?
Well, I started in 98, so it's quite a long time.
20 years?
Yeah. Kind of writing loads of notebooks full of words, and then kind of took hold of the social media side of things.
Now, technically speaking, you're a builder. Do you do any now?
No, it's all gone. All that's gone. It's kind of got busy now. But
that's good, isn't it?
Yeah, real good. It's kind of got busy and everything's took over. And so I'm kind of writing my 5th book now, so it's kind of getting a bit crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking through the cards I've got, because when we first met, and it's I don't know, it's got to be more than 10 years.
Yeah,
now,
a long time. Yeah.
Wrote out various questions, added to them that. What I've got here, this is question 7 when we first spoke. Can you make a living out of writing poetry? Then you'll go, well, not really, but...
Yeah, you can now. The key thing is to have a lot of books out. You're not going to survive on one book, so you need multiple, so that when people discover you on the internet, they've got a library to buy, and that's where the revenue comes in, is multiple books. Some people have like 20 books out, and someone discovers them, they've got a library of 20 books to buy, and that's where your kind of money starts adding up, and you kind of get a revenue from that. So yeah, you've got to have a lot of books out.
Because you're up to, what is it?
5 this year. 5 coming out this year.
Is it getting easier? Because there was a big gap, wasn't there, between the first one and...
There was, because I kind of didn't think about it at first. I didn't even think about books, to be honest. I went on the BBC and just to talk about poetry and being local, and they brought me on. And the bloke said, it kind of like in the break, you need to have a book out. So I kind of thought about it, and I didn't...
Was this Bernie?
Yeah, it was actually, Bernie Keith. And he said to me, you need a book out. I didn't think about it for it. I was just writing and sharing for fun and enjoying the whole experience. And of course, I put it all together, got a book out, and that's kind of where it took off.
It is true. It's completely true, because it's the same with you hear an artist or a band on the radio. The first thing you do is you go to Amazon. Other ones are available, but you mainly go to Amazon. What have they got? And it's disappointing when you get there. Well, there isn't anything.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a history on the internet. I've got loads of books out anyway, but I've also got a history of everything I've done on the internet, so people can Google me and kind of like, if they discover you for the first time, like you say, people go to the internet, they Google as well, they check the social sites, and I've got like a history of like 20 years worth of stuff there. So it's good to have a background so that when you kind of make it really well, people have got loads to discover.
Well, going right back to the beginning, how did you actually start writing poetry?
Well, I didn't kind of learn it at school, because at school it wasn't really taught when I was at school. We just probably learnt about Shakespeare. They didn't cover modern poets. It was just what it was. I just started writing things down. I kind of like listening to music. I like classical instrumental film scores. And I kind of started using that to write down my thoughts and things, and it kind of happened from there. This was before Facebook. So kind of like before Facebook existed, and all you had was news groups in your emails. Mm-hmm. So you went into your emails and you could search news groups, and I used to kind of post on them, and then people used to just comment, oh, I love this. And I didn't have no idea what my work was like until you share it online, and then people kind of started liking it, and I was like, okay then. And it spurred you on to write the next poem and the next poem. And I think I'm over 500 poems now, so...
Do you think it's fair to say that if it wasn't for social media, you'd still be a builder?
Yeah, I think so, actually. I embraced it because I kind of got into it before the Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and all that, and started from the bottom. Before, when your kind of dial-up internet made a weird noise when you connected to the internet. So I kind of started like that. So they kind of really helped me. But I started at the beginning, so I learnt it from the beginning before everything got crazy. And then I just kind of learnt the social sites as they come along and learnt how to use them correctly. So, yeah.
You mentioned that when you were at school, and indeed when I was at school, the only sort of mildly sort of poetic type of thing was Shakespeare, which I think in most cases would turn people off of poetry and that sort of thing, because it's
boring.
It is, isn't it? I mean, it's not even. I mean, it's done in English, sort of.
It's all back to front. The words,
yes, exactly. The order is is ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's very much like the old Eric Morecambe, all the words, but in
Different
not
order,
necessarily-
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's all over the place. But do you have a favourite poet?
I didn't. I kind of have a few like modern ones now that I kind of like to read. R.M. Drake, Langley, Rupi Kaur. They're all like modern ones that have really gone really. They're very popular with their work.
And are these all sort of social media based?
Yeah, they kind of started on Instagram. Yeah, the Insta poets, as everyone calls them, and they kind of like got into. They got found by the right person and kind of like made it on the internet. They're good. I like them. I've just the old school stuff is just. It's kind of a lot to wade through, and it's kind of like you say, it's all in different order. And I just never really clicked with it at all. I know people do, but I've just never really clicked with that kind of old school language.
Yeah, certainly old school. Isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, in a minute, we'll talk about what's a typical day for a poet. But first of all, let's have a little bit of music. Are there lots of poets out there that are successful, or is it very much just that people find a poem that they like, but that person doesn't manage to come up with any more?
I think there are, especially on the Instagram, the famous Insta poets. There's a lot of those on there that have kind of like tried to copy everyone else. You know, they've looked at who's popular and kind of changed their writing style to suit that, and think in the hope that overnight they're going to have an overnight success. But with poetry, you have to be there for the long haul. You kind of have to be. You kind of have to know that it's going to be a slow kind of rise to where you want to be, and you have to build an audience to kind of like that are going to stick around for a long time. And I think that's the key success is that you. I mean, I've got people that are following me that have followed me since I first started because they like my work, and that's just the way you have to build it up. You can't be an overnight success. Never going to happen, because if you're an overnight success, you're also going to disappear pretty quickly as well, because you're not going to have much to offer, really.
So you're just going to build it very gradually, then?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing mine. I've been doing Instagram probably since it first started, and kind of building up a following of people that actually like me and my work, as opposed to people just like you say, one piece and then they're not interested. So you have to build an audience, like anyone really. You have to build an audience.
Right. Well, we'll take a very small break there, because it's time we got on with our On This Day in Music, and then we will find out what a typical day is for a poet, if indeed there is any such thing as a typical day.
On This Day in Music, on Saturday Breakfast, on Radio Nene Valley.
Right, today, 1964, when the Beatles appeared on the ATV show Sunday night at the London Palladium, performing I Want to Hold Your Hand, This Boy, All My Lovin' Money and Twist and Shout. Compere for the evening was, of course, the legendary Bruce Forsyth. When the Beatles appeared on this show in October 63, their fee had been £250. Now, just 3 months later, their fee was £1,000. 1969, and Led Zeppelin's debut album was released in the UK. Recorded at the Olympic Studios in Barnes in London, the album took only about 36 hours of studio time to complete, at a cost of just £1,782. Most of the tracks being recorded live in the studio, with very few overdubs. The album spent a total of 71 weeks on the UK charts. In 1977, and EMI Records issued a statement saying it felt unable to promote the Sex Pistols records in view of the adverse publicity generated over the last 2 weeks. Also in 77, and the Police had just had their first rehearsal held at drummer Stuart Copeland's London flat, with Henry Padovani on guitar. 1992, and Bob Geldof was arrested after a disturbance on a Boeing 727, which had been grounded for 5 hours at Stansted Airport. 2001, and British Airways staff complained about Oasis singer Liam Gallagher after he had grabbed the stewardess's bottom, refused to stop smoking, and threw objects around the cabin during a flight from London to Rio de Janeiro. Oh, the world of pop. 2005, and it was announced that the Strawberry Fields children's home, immortalised by the Beatles, was to close. The home in Walton in Liverpool was made famous when John Lennon wrote Strawberry Fields Forever after playing there as a child. And finally, 2010, Shakin' Stevens was found guilty of hitting a press photographer with a microphone stand during a concert at a hotel in Ballymena.
More on This Day in Music at the same time next week.
We were trading a little bit earlier. We never got round to asking the question. And right, typical day for a full-time poet who's no longer a builder.
Well, it starts coffee. That's the good start to the day. And basically, it's because I'm on so many social sites. The kind of day starts with going through yesterday's social sites, kind of thing, catching up with all the comments and all the people that kind of share my work. Because what I tend to like to do is, if people kind of like use my work on their Instagram page or their Twitter, I like to share it on mine to say thanks and tag them, So I kind of go through all the fan stuff, check my emails to kind of see what I've got, and action all those. That can take up a lot of your day, kind of trying to catch back up from the previous day, because it's busy because you're on so many sites. And then I kind of start just writing. And just doing other things. I like actually tidying the house anyway, because I'm quite So, to be fair, sometimes I'm writing while I'm tidying the house, or I'm doing things on the house, because if I just sat there and said, right, now I'm going to write a poem, it won't work. So you have to distract your mind by doing other things, but just keeping paper and pen with you, and then you kind of write good stuff that way. It doesn't work just sitting in a room and say, right, you're going to write a poem now, because your brain just thinks panic and doesn't do anything. So that's kind of how I do my poems. Normally, if I go out, I've got my headphones in, I'm walking, I've got a notepad and pen, I'm kind of writing as I go along. So it's all the times when you're doing other stuff that you write kind of the best poetry, that kind of way, instead of just sitting there thinking, right, I've got to knock out another poem now, and it just doesn't work for me.
Do you set yourself targets? Do you say, I mean, I know you put it on your various sites, you put new poem coming tomorrow. Do you set yourself a target saying, I've got to have another one by the end of the week?
I do look at kind of what I'm sharing, because I have new followers all the while. I tend to share kind of stuff. I'll look at what I've shared before and kind of change it a little bit and kind of show new people old stuff to kind of keep both happy, to kind of keep the new people happy and the old people happy. You have to kind of have a mix, and also have a mix of what's going on in the media, what you're doing, where your next event is, where people can, and what books are out. So it's trying to keep a balance. I do kind of I write all the while, so even though I've got a lot of stuff written that no one's seen, I kind of like trying to mix the old stuff as well, so that new...
So you've got some emergency spares?
Yeah, I have. I mean, I normally write quite a few poems ahead of what's been shown, so that I've got and I would break each poem down into sections sometimes, because sometimes poems can be long and people haven't got time, social media sites are flicking through them.
So what is the ideal... Because I noticed some of your poems are perhaps sort of like only, 6, 8 lines. What's a typical
It's because,
length now?
Well, a lot of my poems, some of them are quite long, so what I would tend to do is I would kind of take chunks of them and put it in smaller pieces and to share, because there is no typical length. It's what you feel at the time or what you write at the time. Even the famous poets' books, some of them could be like 4 lines. And that's a poem, and these books are selling millions of books, and people are like, oh, I love this. It's kind of hard to gauge of what people like, because one person can say this is really rubbish, it's 4 lines, and the next person can say, I love this. So it's kind of, it doesn't matter what length it is, I think it's whether the person connects with that poem. But what I tend to do with mine, if I write a really long one, because I know people's attention span sometimes on the internet, because everything's pinging and so many things, I tend to split them into kind of more sizable chunks that are more digestible, as opposed to a whole A4 of a poem, which people are going to think, I can't be asked to read that, and just scroll past it, kind of thing.
So it's like, I suppose, the poetic equivalent of, on one hand, you've got Tim Vine, and the other hand, you've got Ken Dodd.
Yeah.
It's still humour, and it's still a joke, but it's a one-line as opposed to a long,
I think, like I say, because social networking sites, people are following so many people, their news feeds are so busy, you have to capture their attention in kind of like that. You've only got about 10 seconds to capture their attention, so you have to kind of make it. If you see a whole A4 page of poetry, yes, some people will read it because they follow your work and they love it, but you've got to kind of like think, okay, that might be too long, so let's cut it down into smaller chunks and let's put it on and see.
So it's sort of like a thought for the day.
Yeah, in a way, because if you, like you say, if it was too long, people are going to think, I can't, people's lives are so busy, I ain't got time to read all that. So you have to, thought for the day, a quote, a small poem.
So, I mean, how do you actually get an idea for a poem? Because I know from how we've spoken in the past, I couldn't just give you a subject. I mean, for instance, we're currently upgrading our studios, and we're going to be getting rid of turntables. So if I said to you the demise of vinyl, you wouldn't be able to do a poem from that, would you?
I used to be. I can do it, but because I had to write for, I used to write for the newspapers, and they asked me to write a specific piece because it was finishing. I found that hard, actually, to kind of write with specific guidelines as to what it's got to be about. I find that difficult because I kind of write, I kind of make it up as I go along and then change it, and then it all gets changed and it becomes something different. So I never really know what I'm going to write until I start writing. I don't start from the beginning either. I mean,
you said you do lots of sort of, you put chunks of words out there.
Yeah.
Do you sort of, I don't know whether you remember what you write or you cross-reference, so you can basically, I suppose effectively you can make a poem with the elements that you've got kicking around, for want of a better phrase.
Yeah, you can. I mean, you can make them out of anything. For me, though, I just kind of like, it's kind of like thinking of something new all the while. That's the hard part. When you've wrote over 500 poems and you're trying to be kind of fresh and new, and it's hard to kind of think of something new to write. And you kind of, in a way, yes, you've run out of ideas, but you've got to kind of think of something new. And for me, that when you get 5 books down, 500 poems in, it becomes a challenge. So you have to kind of have a think of what's next, and that's when it gets hard.
We said typically you can't tell how long it's actually going to take you to actually write a poem, but before you're happy with it and you're sort of happy to sort of let it go out into the world on its own, do you do a lot of tweaking and adjusting and
loads of editing? Yeah. I've actually edited one poem before and completely edited it to nothing, and it ended up being no poem because I suppose you're self-conscious of when you put stuff out. Is it good enough? And I still am, even after all this time. Is it good enough? So you tend to edit something, or you take out lines, and that doesn't work. And then it can be every writer's, curse is that you edit to death. And that's the hardest part, I think, of being a writer, is that you edit something and it looks nothing like the original thing that you actually started out with.
So should you perhaps not
sort
of overanalyze it? Just sort of. It's what's in your mind at that moment. Leave it at that.
I have done that, and I've just wrote one piece straight out and put it out, and people have loved it. But sometimes, it's always in the back of your thought in your mind, kind of like, is it good enough? Should I change this? Should I change that? And you can kill some poems just by editing to death, and I have done that over
Once
the
it's
years.
out there, do you leave it, or do you still tweak it?
Well, I've looked at old ones.
Do you have like a sort of a second version of it?
I've looked at some of my original stuff I've wrote when I first started, and I actually, because my style has changed, I think I could actually think, I could do that better now. I have done that with some of my old stuff, and kind of like thought about it and thought actually I could write that better, and kind of tweaked it a bit and put it back out on the social sites as something kind of different. And I think you could tweak anything, couldn't you, to death.
You could, but is it best to leave it as it was?
Yeah, it is.
Because you get sort of the has-been pop stars of years gone by that will do a re-recording of one of their original hits because it's how they interpret it now, and it ruins it.
Yeah, well, definitely. I think you can, and sometimes best like films when they remake they reboot films, and the new version is nowhere near like the original, and you think, why did you even bother? Some of the classics like Ghostbusters and stuff like that. So, again, sometimes it's best just to leave things.
We talked about lots of social media. So, social media, when we first, question 15, all those years ago, how important is social media to you? I think it's...
Yeah,
isn't it? Without it, you wouldn't
it's
be...
bread and butter, really. And the problem is that there's so many sites to choose from. You've got to... Over the years, I've kind of like... I originally started joining them all thinking, this is going to be amazing, I'm going to join everyone and, world domination. But there's too many. Over the years, I've added, took away, and eventually just got down to the core ones, which are Instagram, Twitter. Instagram and Twitter, really. I mean, Facebook, I just kind of find it not great anymore. It used to be good. But just really Instagram and Twitter are the two places that, for me personally anyway, as a poet, and an author kind of selling their work in the way that you want to build an audience. For poetry, Instagram and Twitter, kind of that's it. The two things you really need to be on.
Facebook, I think, seems to have lost it. It's full of scamming websites now.
They've gone through a lot of problems, haven't they, Facebook, over the last couple of years with the fake news.
Yeah, but they don't. I mean, every day there will be a new get these £200 Timberland boots for £25.
With Facebook now, they've also got, you can sell stuff on Facebook now, can't you? So you can actually upload your things and sell it.
Yeah.
They're kind of diversified into every kind of area on Facebook, and I just think it's just diluted too much. And I did like Facebook, and it was a good place when I first started, but I've kind of gone away from it and kind of gone into Instagram, Instagram is the biggest social networking site on the internet anyway, so the most kind of like...
I suppose for sort of short, punchy bits of poetry, I think is ideal, isn't it?
Personally for me it is, because, I mean, obviously everyone has their own sites they use for their own things, but for me, for poetry, Instagram and Twitter. And Twitter, actually, I've found that quite useful lately. The last couple of years, I've really got into Twitter and found it, real good fun, and there's a lot of people on there that I've met, and I've really made loads of friends, so yeah. Twitter and Instagram for me personally.
Yeah, because Instagram, I think that's primarily a photographic thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Pictures or images.
Well, they've kind of changed now. I mean, they've all changed. You can now do live chat. You can do everything on Instagram and Twitter now. They've all kind of copied each other. So not only is it used to be sharing, you can go live and do live chats, have your followers speak to you via that. And there's so many things on there now. But yeah, I just kind of use it for sharing photos of poetry and stuff like that.
So Instagram then is the
Instagram.
most one. We know you've got loads and loads of books out, and we will talk about those shortly. But is there a part of the world where your poems are especially popular?
Probably America, and that's probably only because of the amount of people that live in America. The volume of people. I tend to share a lot of my stuff by the books. If I look at the demographics from my sales, yeah, America is quite high. I think that's probably because there are more people living there. So I mean, the population is bigger, therefore you're going to have kind of more followers through that.
Yeah, well, yeah, I suppose. Yeah, more base you've got there to actually sell it. Now, I'm going on these questions again. We're up to number 18 on here.
Oh, right, okay.
Are short or longer poems more popular? Well, we've established really that the little bouncy sort of sound bites are the way to go. They
are, and people like to share those. And so with my work, people tend to share my poetry with their pictures, and they like that small little bit in the caption below. So yeah, the smaller ones tend to work.
Yeah, you write your poems. Do you sort of like them to be clear, instantly visible, or do you like it so that do you sort of hide bits in it so that people have got to read it a few times and then find something else in it? I
think sometimes with my work, what I write about, people probably wouldn't know what it's about, because obviously I've written it and it's about something that I've written. But yeah, if you reread poems sometimes, people see different things in different poems. So what one person might see in that poem, another person might read exactly the same poem and get something completely different out of it. And that's why poetry is great, because it relates to so many different people, and kind of every person that reads it sees something different. So what I originally wrote, actually, that person that reads it might see something completely different, that kind of like about their life, about what they're going through. So I think that's why, yeah, it's so universal, and every person that reads it sees something different. So yeah.
Books. We're on to books now.
Yes.
When we first started talking, you had got one book out.
Yes, that was
plus a collector's edition, I think, hadn't you, of the same book with photos.
Yeah, I bought the first one was In Between the Lines, and then with that I did a collector's edition because I love black and white photography anyway. So I did kind of like that with it, and then it went to Bloom, and then last year I released 2 books in 1 year, which was a task. That was Red, and then we had The Pieces that Collide, which came out Christmas. So kind of last year was a busy year for me because it was 2 books in 1 year, and my book Red was all hand typed on an old-fashioned typewriter, so that was hard work.
Well, you can probably get an old-fashioned typewriter font for the computer, can't you?
You can, and I have used it on stuff because I can't be asked to type sometimes because it's too. Because some of my stuff I used to, for that book it was a killer because I'd get to the end of a really long poem, press the wrong key on the actual typewriter, and you can't.
Have you not got the film that you?
Yeah. I did. I think I just. It was real stressful doing that. The old-fashioned typewriter. I actually do hand type them still for like things like load sometimes. But yeah, that was a lot of hard work. But it looked lovely at the end. The finished product was lovely, so I was happy. But then this year we've got book number 5, so it's just constantly building. I mean, I like writing anyway, and it's also the books are there primarily for the fans of my work, to, like you say, to go online and buy something.
Right.
So
what are the sales going like? Is it worth it?
Definitely. I mean, especially because recently I did stuff for London Underground over Christmas, and that kind of like pushed me to a whole new audience that were kind of like going online. Who's this? Who's James McInerney? You know, Googling me, going to my social sites, showing my work, buying the books. So I think sometimes when you do these different things and you diversify, which I've kind of done over the years, you meet a whole new audience you never had before, and that means your book sales go up, which, you know, is really good. So you have to kind of diversify and kind of do things that you wouldn't normally do. So, I mean, doing stuff with London Underground, it was a real honour, and they were showing my work on the service information boards.
Right.
Something you wouldn't expect normally to do, but kind of like going that way and doing that, it kind of helped me.
How did you come up with that idea? Well, how did that opportunity raise its head?
Well, we go to London a lot anyway. When we do go, we go in the Underground a lot, and they have service information boards, like telling you what's happening. I just kind of thought about it, and I thought, okay, I might contact them and see, just one station and see what happens. And they come back, yes, straight away, we'll do it. Because obviously I've done a lot of work, so you've got a good CV behind you anyway. And then it kind of snowballed from there with one, and then all over Christmas it was. Different stations, sharing different quotes, poems, and it really, you know, took off. And I've actually going to start doing a lot of that this year with kind of like airports and train stations.
Had they done that? Had London Underground done that before?
They do kind of things like that, but they tend to be quotes from like books like prose, like famous authors, and they take a section, like a famous quote, as it were, and they do that kind of thing, but not necessarily with poetry, no. So it was a real honour to actually have some of the stations that don't really do that using my work all over Christmas. So, and I'll be doing something like that kind of like this year now. So coming into 2019, I'm going to continue that vein and kind of like do more things like that and get my work out there more on the back of that kind of thing. So there's loads more to come.
Right. If people actually want to find out more about you, I know they can just search James McInerney or James the Poet, all manner of things like that. We'll find you on that. But do you have a website for them to go to?
I do. I mean, the website's a really long-winded name, but if you go to my Instagram, if people don't have it, is Mills MC07. It's got all the links to my website on there, on the bio. But if you just type my name into Google, the website comes up first anyway, just the first link. And you can just get everything from the website anyway. Everything I'm doing and the future stuff I'm doing as well. So Google search.
Now, you're just going to have one book this year?
Yeah, just one.
You were greedy last year with 2 books.
So yeah, one this year because kind of like I've got a busy. I know I've got a busy year ahead. I've got some Comic Cons coming up, and I've got a lot of stuff I've got to do personally. So kind of like one book.
I mean, I've sort of obviously followed you on the various social media sites. I've noticed a lot of the Comic Con. Now, how does that work? Because I don't sort of instantly think Comic Con, right? Comics, people that dress up like characters from various things. I'm thinking, poet?
Yeah, I was kind of
How
shocked. I actually got invited to one. It was a few years back. I've done quite a few of them, and I went and sat down the tables next to all the comic book artists who like draw. You know, you can buy them there and then. And actually, I had my stall set out, and I had everything there. And people were coming to my stall more than they were going to the comic artists, looking. And there's obviously a market for it.
But what made you think that would be an outlet, or did someone say?
No, someone suggested you should check out the Comic Cons as something different. And I kind of like approached a few of them, thinking, no, they're going to say no. And I got invited. Yeah, just got invited. They obviously looked at the work I'd done. And that's my ongoing thing, is because I do a lot of work, people look at your history and they want examples of what you've done in the media, and kind of like said, yes, we'll have you in as a guest. And it was just, when again, like the London Underground, which is something you wouldn't normally think, worked really well. That worked, and I was actually had more people at my table looking at my work, buying things and anything, than actually the comic book artists. So it's just one of those things, you've got to go into weird situations where you've got to go into areas you wouldn't normally go, that you don't think poetry works with, and actually it does. So craziness.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose with comic book and that, you're very much a sort of just a quick comment in the bubbles, aren't you? You think it's a quick statement, so it probably does.
Yeah, I've done quite a few Comic Cons. Yeah, I've done a lot of them, and every time I go, it's always gone really well. I meet loads of people. They come up and they buy the books, they buy stuff that I have there, and I sign them. And it's really good fun. So
have you got a spare bedroom full of books now?
Yeah.
I know Amazon is your main outlet, isn't it?
They are in a few bookstores as well, but that's obviously bookstores that have bought the books themselves, and they basically have them in their store and they sell them that way. But Amazon, which is the biggest bookstore in the world, really. I mean, it's
the biggest store in the world, isn't it?
Well, the man that owns it is the richest man in the world, isn't he?
But you can't knock them. You really can't. I mean, people say, well, they don't pay enough tax, they don't pay enough this. Yeah, well, if they can get away with it, they will, won't they? But any time of the day or night, you can think of anything, go on there, and the chances are it will be there the next day.
Yeah, and if you've got an Alexa as well, where you kind of the speaking thing, you can order with your voice, which is dangerous. It's dangerous,
isn't it? If you just think, there obviously are going to be lots of safeguards on it to stop you sort of having a lorry load of crisps turn up because you mentioned walkers and things like that, but. No, it's good. It's the way forward, but it also has a detrimental effect on. Well, look at Northampton town centre.
I mean, like you say, over Christmas there was a big thing over Christmas where a lot of the shops were actually closing down, and some of the high street stores. It's affecting them, isn't it? In the fact that people are buying online now.
It is, but I'm certainly guilty.
So am I. The prices are cheaper, aren't they?
It's the immediacy of it as well, isn't it? If we decide you want something, you want it the next day. You don't want to sort of go, right, well, I'll go into town on Saturday and I'll pay £3, £4, £5 to park.
Yeah.
Your
petrol costs as well.
You
can click your mouse and it's delivered to your door, isn't it? And I think over Christmas, a lot of the high street stores, it was on the news that all the major brands are kind of like struggling, aren't they?
I mean, you're looking. HMV, I think, is going to be the next one to go.
They went into almost administration over Christmas.
They've gone into administration again, but who would buy it? Who would buy it? I can't imagine that. It's a shame.
Yeah.
It's another name off the high street, but potentially Debenhams, I think, is probably going to be the next.
No, I think they were listed. But there's also a big thing about vinyl now. People are buying more vinyl, aren't they? The HMV was selling vinyl. All the latest albums were actually coming straight out on vinyl, weren't they? And it seemed to be a big market. So, obviously...
It's a gimmick, isn't it? It's a gimmick. I mean, we're ditching vinyl. It's not as...
Is the sound better, vinyl?
I think possibly. If you've got an unscratched vinyl, the sound is going to... Because the sort of the physics of it is that you've got a never-ending variation, whereas digital is basically 1 or 0, 1 or 0 all the way along. But it's down to the handling of it and all manner of things like that.
But I think, so you say everything's... People are going online now, so my books are all in Amazon because for me it's the easiest thing. Worldwide, everyone uses Amazon. And if anyone asks where I can buy my books, I just say Amazon.
So have you embraced Kindle as well?
Yep. All my kind of latest books are also kind of a straight port over to Kindle. So Kindle isn't as popular as I thought it would be. Ebooks started off going to be really big, but they just kind of... People have gone back to books now. I thought ebooks would take over books and then the books would be kind of got rid of, but it's gone back the other way.
Yeah, there's something nice about a book, though, isn't there?
I love reading a book. I have got a Kindle reader, and I read stuff on there sometimes, but I like a book, physical book, so they're staying on book.
I think that's probably more relevant with a poetry book as well, in that you're going to flick through that book and then find something, read that. Whereas you're not going to want to scroll up and down and...
Yeah, and people kind of put them on... I love their bookshelves, don't they? They love to have a library of their favourite books on the bookshelf. You can't do that with Kindle, can you? It's all stored on one device, and it's like,
I mean, just to work the other way, a friend of mine that's basically loves books, or has loved books in the past, told by his wife, no more books, so he's got a Kindle.
Big books on kind of Instagram is huge as well. People like to have their books in colour order, and then they'll take pictures, and that's a big thing on Instagram. It is, yeah. People are obsessed with coloured books, all different coloured, neatly on their shelves, take pictures, and people go mad for that. So I think books will be around.
It's worrying, isn't it? it's worrying the level of obsession, but well,
at least it keeps books alive. I mean, it keeps people buying books. But the problem is, again, libraries closing down, and that's books kind of going as well, isn't it?
I think that hasn't gone quite as bad as we thought it was for
No,
Northamptonshire,
no.
certainly, has it?
They were quite actually lucky, I think. I don't know what the future holds, but they're kind of been given a breather, haven't they, for a while?
Yeah, I think there's only sort of a couple of them that are definitely going to close, aren't there?
I remember when I first started going to the meetings when it first started happening, because I went along because I love libraries and I've done a lot of work in libraries, and it looked like pretty much all of them were going at one point and were going to be replaced with gyms, you know. So luckily it wasn't as bad as we originally thought. So at least the libraries are still around.
We've said before, is there a market for books of poetry? Well, it would appear that there certainly is, isn't there?
There is, especially now that you've got the Insta poets, like the famous people now that everyone's kind of buying their books from, and they've got millions of followers on Instagram, and the fact that poetry's back in schools. So this kind of generation have had poetry back into the GCSEs, so they're actually being forced to learn poetry, but they're having to study.
So are they studying the old-fashioned rubbish, or are they?
No, they're looking at modern artists now, because my actual work was used in a local school, and they basically took a couple of my poems and they broke them down and kind of analysed them. So they're kind of using modern now.
That was interesting. Did you find out how they analysed them?
Yeah,
did it balance up to what you thought they were?
Well, it was Northampton School for Girls actually took one of my poems and analysed them and try and worked out. I didn't, but it would have been interesting to work out what they thought about what it was about.
Yeah, because you would sit there and go, no, that's not what I meant.
Exactly, and that's the thing about poetry, is that you can write something about what you write about. Someone can read it and go, oh, this is about this. And it's not, but they can read it and see themselves in it, and that's what makes poetry live forever, because it's always fresh.
Well, yeah. Going back to one of our old questions that we asked when we first met, and it's going to get a different answer this time, I think. When I asked you then, are printed books losing out to e-books? And I think at the time, they were, weren't they?
They were. I think when e-books came along, there was a Kindle, there were so many different things like the Kindle and anything else. Kobo was a big one as well. They were the next big thing, they were the mini-disc. And they did start for a while. People were like, you can walk around with a book and you can store all your books in one thing, device. But people have gone back again the other way. In the same way that people have gone back into vinyl, people have gone back to paperbacks and kind of love them as opposed to ebooks. So times they are changing.
Yeah, it's strange. Everything goes round and round, doesn't it? We've discussed you use social media, local radio when it's available. Local press is almost non-existent now, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's pretty insignificant. What else do you do to promote?
Well, I kind of like, what I tend to do is like I kind of mix, like we said with the London Underground, I kind of go into areas that are different. And I think to myself, well, will poetry lend itself to that? And sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I also run a kind of poetry project where I work with actors and actresses who actually take my work and voice it, video voice it, and again make a poem which was started off as what I wrote into something completely different. And kind of the aim of that is to get people who don't like poetry or have never been interested in poetry before interested in it, because an actor or an actress is actually voicing something and making it look relevant and new. So I do a lot of that throughout the year. I work with YouTubers and I work with actors and actresses, and I've got a lot of big things coming up with kind of big actresses from TV and film,
right?
Which I can't say, but that's going to be happening this year. I'm going to continue that kind of vein of doing that as well, and make it a bit more high profile with these actors and actresses. Doing that poetry project, and basically in the hope that people will watch that video, that dramatic video or something like that, and actually like it, not realising they're liking poetry, which is the whole aim of the project, to get people into poetry. And that's the kind of thing I've done since the beginning, really. So that's all to come.
Now, we mentioned the London Underground displays over Christmas. Have you had any feedback from that on that?
Yeah, I mean, when they were put on the day, I got tagged in them to say they were on, so that's kind of how it works. And suddenly I'll get people following me on Twitter, Instagram, because they would list your Twitter handle, and then they would share it, and then they'd be like messaging you, or like your work, where can I get your books? And it was it's instant. So because people have got their phones in their hands, and they're walking through the tube station, or who's that? And they're Googling you, and they can find you straight away. It's not a case of it happens down the line. It's straight away with social sites. So when they kind of see your thing, it's there, and they're on your immediately on the day. So that's the way the world is.
You need one of the little QR
the
code things that scan it. Yeah.
But I think, that's it. I think kind of people nowadays live on their phones, don't they? So whether they're on the tube, whether they're walking down the street and they've got their head on their phone, if they see something of yours, I mean, I do. I kind of Google the person or look at their thing and say, what have they got? What have they got out? And it's instant. So, instant response.
Absolutely superb. You mentioned you got some actors and actresses, or I think they're just called actors now. Aren't
Yeah,
they?
they are.
Strangely enough, doing some of your work. Do you do any live performances yourself? Other than the one that you can do in a couple of minutes?
I kind of I don't tend to do that because I'm not good at acting. I'm not good at kind of voicing my stuff. That's why I kind of do the project with other people. But I've done some stuff on the BBC.
Because performance poetry is an art form out there now, isn't it?
It's a different kettle of fish, though. It's a different type of poet. There's people that sit and like me that write, and kind of put their work online and get other people to voice their work. And then there's people that will stand on stage in front of a mic and, in a nightclub or whatever and perform their poetry. That's not me.
No. That's sort of, I'm trying to think, Billy Bragg type of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a different kettle of kind of poet. I think they're just kind of people that are good with that thing. And, fair play to them. I couldn't do that. I've been asked to quite a few times at festivals to come. Yeah, but it's just not my.
But
thing.
in our small, intimate studio, you're going to read us a poem.
Yeah, I'll read one from one of my books. Let's have a quick look. Let's find one, and it was this one. When I leave. When I leave. It will not be to the sound of synchronized footsteps as I'm carried through a storm of tears. My final memories won't be of loved ones all dressed in black, allowing the bitter aftertaste of sorrow into their hearts. No, when I leave, it will be a joyous occasion, a ticker-tape parade, a sea of every colour without tide or wave, so that I may drift at my leisure towards a glorious end. And though the sky shall become my resting place, I will not wear tired eyes that are required to sleep, nor shall I wallow in the valley of despair. Instead, I will become the sun, the moon, and all the stars, forever shining, a constant reminder to those who I have loved and who loved me in return, that although there exists a distance between us, even at its greatest, we shall never be apart.
That's got a sort of an oldie worldy feel about it. It sort of screamed sort of, I don't know, sort of war poet type of thing, wasn't it?
I mean, I tried to. Each style is different from mine, and I've got them, and I've got a mix of all different styles, and it's just how I feel on the day, kind of thing. And like I say, my style is different throughout the book, and it's kind of like you say, how I feel on the day and what my thoughts are, and it just manifests itself into whatever comes out onto the page sometimes. So it's kind of how I write.
And that sort of thing would have come from listening to classical music.
Your classical and film scores, and probably seen a scene that kind of provoked something like that, and that's kind of how what happens.
Back now to our poet, and we'll wrap things up very, very, very shortly. But we've mentioned what you've done, and I think also in what you've done a lot in the libraries, haven't you?
Yeah,
a lot of sort of group work with young people.
Yeah, because I kind of grew up in the libraries and I love the libraries and books. I kind of I've got involved with the libraries, and the reading challenge they do every year. I go and do workshops where we have children come in, for free. It's all free. No one gets paid. It's all for helping other people. And they come in and I teach them basics of poetry, easy stuff, and getting them involved into poetry kind of thing, using the library service, visiting different libraries, also going into schools as well. So I've gone into schools and taught poetry to all different year groups, and kind of getting them involved in poetry as well.
Are they interested in it, or is it very much, oh, no, poetry?
You do get, out of the class, say if there's a class of 30 students, you'll probably get about a handful that really love it. But so because schools are doing poetry now on the curriculum, a lot of kids are kind of clued up with it now. Whereas before in the old days, like, oh, poetry, you know, Shakespeare, don't want anything to do with that. Now they're kind of looking at modern poets. And when you go in, the kind of hard work's done because they already love poetry, a lot of the kids. And you get some real standout kids that are really good at poetry and think, wow. And yeah, so it's definitely
Is the
changing.
Creativity there, is it?
Yeah. A lot of the kids actually think, you look at them and think, you know, they're not interested, actually produce the best work in the class. It's suddenly their brains are switched to creativity, and it's like they produce all this great work, whereas before, probably maybe in class, they're not interested in anything else. So you always get those key kids that you can pick out, and poetry is really good.
Oh, right. Well, that's the past. What's happening in the immediate and short-term future?
I'm back on the BBC with John Griff at the end of Feb, doing my usual thing throughout the year where I go on and talk about the newspapers and then talk a bit about myself. That's at the end. And then I'm back in April. I'm in London, Park Inn in Heathrow for 4 days, doing EasterCon, doing a book signing and kind of meeting people from the 19th of April to the 22nd, all over the Easter holidays.
Right, so is that sort of all these sort of action comic book?
Yeah, it's a mix.
Things,
it's a mix. There's going to be like publishers there. There's going to be, you know, Comic Con. There's going to be loads of things going on. And I've kind of gone down. I'm going down to sign my books for 4 days and kind of be in London. It'd be nice.
So you'll be typing your little displays and everything.
Yeah, getting everything
pictures.
ready. Yeah, pictures. Take some merchandise down to sell and the books, and get people to come along and sign books and take selfies with them like we normally do.
Because you do quite, looking at the sort of pictures that you've done on the internet, you do quite a bit of the sort of, I suppose it's more sort of decorative side of or decorative and creative side of poetry, sort of framed poems and things like that, and they seem to go very well, don't they?
Yeah, I started doing that. I come with the idea of it. I started taking them to Comic Cons and events that I went to, and people really were buying them like in handfuls. So I love these and give them as gifts to people. So I took sections of my poems out, my books, and hand typed them on an old-fashioned typewriter, signed them, put them in a nice frame, and they went down really well. And I take them everywhere I go now. I do new stuff and old stuff, and type it up, and people love them. Kind of when they come and buy the books, there's other merchandise, but they love the signed frames, so we kind of stick with that and give them something else. And they buy as gifts for their friends, or they buy them as presents and everything else. So really kind of like, again, a different angle of poetry. Probably appeals to people that probably wouldn't like a poetry book, but they like something framed. So
yeah, if it looks good.
Yeah. So yeah, that's in I'm at EasterCon in April, and again, new book out this year. So I'm just finishing to get that done, working with more actors and actresses, doing more things, kind of like in the London Underground and with train stations and airports with poetry. So 2019 is going to be a big year, and probably the biggest I've got to date, with all the things I can see that are going to go on down in the year. So yeah, it's going to be a big year for me.
I know you track or tend to track where your books have gone. People that have bought. Where's the furthest or the strangest location of one of your books?
North Pole, actually. North Pole. Someone, a kind of library in the North Pole, actually brought the books. Strangely enough, yeah, and it ended up in the North Pole. They ended up in the North Pole in the library. Someone sent the pictures in. It was like, wow, that's a bit weird.
It is really, because I mean the fines could be immense if you just a day overdue there, couldn't it?
I know, and it's just you know, I log on the internet in the morning, I kind of check my stuff, and I just get some weird messages, and like it's nice to see all the different people buying the books and sending selfies in, which I do share. But as you say, you get some bizarre things like that where North Pole, well, that's strange, but it's nice anyway to see that people are buying the books and kind of sharing them everywhere. It means that it's still relevant. So.
Yeah, that's good. Good. Just to recap, you've got what books you've got out there now?
Yeah, I've got In Between the Lines, Bloom, Red, The Pieces That Collide, and Book 5 is out this year.
Do we know what that's called yet, or have you not decided?
It's Everything I Write Is About You.
All right. Is it going to be a more romantic one?
Well, it's going to be more probably upbeat actually than mine.
Right.
A more kind of like more upbeat. The stuff I've been writing lately is a bit more upbeat, and it's going to be a bit more that way. Whereas my books cover so many different topics. I think I've kind of covered a lot of topics over 4 books.
Why is your poetry more upbeat now? Is it because of how well you're doing? You're getting a little bit more comfortable in your poetry?
Well, I think I'm looking at what works. Upbeat, inspirational, empowering, kind of like that kind of stuff is very popular nowadays. People want to read something that motivates them, and I've kind of changed my work more geared towards that now. So this book is tending to be a bit more geared to that. And I'm at a stage now where I've done 4 books of the kind of poems I've currently written, and I'm just making a bit of a change. So it's going down well anyway, the new style. So carry on doing that.
Superb. Now, just to recap, if anyone wants to find out about you, just basically put James McInerney and poet into Google, and then it will find everything.
Literally, the internet is full, because I've been doing it for such a long time. I worry sometimes. I do Google search. I have Google searched myself and found some very weird stuff on the internet. But yeah, just Google it, basically. And if you're on Instagram, I'm MillsMC07. And basically, that's got everything, links to everything anyway, so all over the internet.
Okay. Finally, before we let you go, can we have another poem?
Yeah. Let me find one more. I'll find an older one. Let's have a look. I'll do a short. This is a shorter one. It's called Today, Not Tomorrow. Tomorrow's sky will never show such beauty as it did today. The way the sun sets and rises will happen in a different way. The rain may fall again upon me, though it won't taste or feel the same. The wind may be calm and gentle, yet it still won't recite your name. The world will keep on turning as though it knew no other way. It won't have realised how beautiful it was just yesterday.
There you have it. That's our Radio Nene Valley resident poet from Northampton, James McInerney. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
The best music, Radio